photography editing live stream where you can submit your images, ideally before the stream starts, and I edit them here for you live using DxO's Photolab 8. And I do want to announce that they are running a summer sale, and it's good until July 6th, which is this Sunday. So there's only a couple days left to get 25% off for brand new customers to DxO. And this is the best deal you're going to get until probably Black Friday. So, uh, I highly recommend it, especially after some things I've been seeing going on with Adobe, with the generative credits. That's uh, just, yeah. If you guys use Adobe Photoshop and any of their AI tools, they're only allowing so many credits with your subscription now, and then you have to buy more. And I didn't even realize it, but that's on me for not paying attention to the terms of service and all that. But I use it time to time to get rid of backgrounds and things, and little did I know I just ate up all my credits because it keeps generating crap. So I'd run it again, get crap, run it again, get crap. So I just let you know, if you're not aware, there is a limit to how many times you can use the AI stuff in Photoshop before you have to start paying for it. As of now, uh, Photolab 8 doesn't charge anything extra. It's a one-time flat fee. They've been updating their software, for years now. I think you can go back as far as Photolab 6, and it's still updating. I haven't checked Photolab 5, but they are very good about updating the software with respect to supporting new cameras that come out. To get the latest features and everything, of course, you have to get the latest version because there's major rework done in the software. But for the most part, it's been um, it's been an excellent software for me, and I've been using it since I think Photolab 4, and I've never looked back. I still have to use other other tools to you know, do different types of things in my photography. But for the most part, 99% of my images I use DxO Photolab 8, and I can highly recommend it. Some of the key features, of course, the DxO optics module, the denoising, and the control points and control line tools I really like. And I use a lot of that here in the photo editing. So uh, this stream is going to be sort of a hybrid of photo editing and open Q&A. So I'm going to edit 2 or 3 pictures, stop and go through the chat, answer any questions you might have about any of the editing tools that I used, um, or anything about Photolab. And there are other products. I'll do the best I can. I don't use those quite as much, but I am familiar with them. And also, and then maybe towards the end, just do an open Q&A on anything photography related. Also, disclosure, I'm an affiliate now for DxO, so if you make any purchases using my affiliate links down below, I will earn a commission, and it's greatly appreciated, your support. And I am running these streams ad-free this month. I'm going to give it a try. I've already seen a big dip in the ad revenue. Not such as it is, it's not much, but even with the 2,000 plus videos and live streams that I have on this channel, I made like $12 yesterday in ad revenue, just to give you some perspective of how little it really is. So I really depend on the affiliate sales, the memberships, your direct donations, to keep this channel going and to cover the expenses I incur. Because uh, it's not free for me to do all this stuff, right? I have to invest time and money to do the things that I do to help you guys out. And if you're not in a position to make a donation or do anything financially, it's okay. It's okay. Just subscribe, click the like button, participate in the community. That's just as valuable to me as any donation, and it's also greatly appreciated. Submitting your images for editing here is also a great way to support what I do. So, uh, I understand everybody's in a different position. And then the last thing I'll talk about is My buddy Ben Chappelle, and he's a fellow creator here on YouTube, primarily astrophotography. Taught me everything I know about astrophotography, and he's not doing well. And his wife set up a GoFundMe page to try to cover some of the financial expenses he's going through. He has terminal cancer, and it's really a shame because he's so young. I mean, he's in his early 30s and has 4 kids. He found out he had cancer right when his last one was born 2.5 years ago. So it's heartbreaking, and my heart goes out to him and his family. But I have a link on my community page to his GoFundMe page, and I'll try to remember to put it in here as well uh, after the stream's over. I should have done that before we started, but uh, let me just put it in chat section real quick. I can do that at least. One second. So, and I know many of you have already, so I really appreciate the support you've shown Ben and his family through the GoFundMe page. But that is the link for Ben's GoFundMe page. So if you can support, it's greatly appreciated by not only me, but I know his family greatly appreciates it. I'm gonna go up and try and see him again. He's only a couple hours away from me, and I've been up to see him a few times. Uh, Most recently, unfortunately, it's just October, so time is flying. He was looking good, feeling good, and we had a great photo walk over at the park. Um, so I want to try and see him again. Uh, to show my support, at least in person. To be there for him and his family, and anything I can do. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. And uh, make sure I got all my screens going, and I'm gonna move this down to here because I realize a lot of you aren't seeing the histogram and stuff up there, which can be useful sometimes. And then, oh, I need to rearrange one more screen, and then we'll get into it. And Marcia, thank you so much for your help here. It's greatly appreciated. I know you've been with me a long time. We've met in person a couple times when you've come up from Florida, and it's always a pleasure. And I really appreciate your support. Okay, now we're good. All right, so we're going to start one out here from Rick. Looks like we have a bird, really colorful. And I'll give you my workflow because, again, this is really about learning how to use DxO Photolab. And I'm going to share with you my approach to photo editing. So I'm going to think out loud as much as I can to explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then also give some tips on or ideas of why I compose or do things a certain way. And don't take anything I say about your image as a criticism. This is your image and your vision of the scene. Anything I do is very subjective, and all of us are different. There's no right or wrong. So let me just add that as well. Uh, but I will offer uh, make suggestions to camera settings and compositions as if I was taking the picture. And again, don't take that as a critique, just as suggestions or different ideas to your own image and vision. All right, so when I'm looking at this image, this is very typical of uh, bird on a stick type images where And it's not because they're on a stick, it's because there's a lot of brush and leaves and everything that's casting a very strong green tint to the images. So ex- so the first thing I'm thinking is I'm gonna have to pull some of that green out off the bird itself and make it more yellow because right now it's kind of a yellow green. Also, I like to fill the frame as much as I can with the subject. That's just my style, usually, because there's rarely anything in the background or off in the sides, particularly with bird on a stick photos that are of interest or add any value or tell any more of the story. So there's no need to keep all of the extra negative space. That's not the right word, but all of the extra pixels, we don't really need them to help tell a story about this bird. And so those are the two things come off my mind right away is the green tint and cropping in tight. And I like square crops a lot of times with these kind of images, unless it's a wingspan where I might do a more elongated type crop. So that's what's going through my mind now. And when I do bird photos, there's always three things I look at as well: eyes, beak, and talons. These are the three things that need to stand out on the bird, along with the colorful feathers and everything. That's kind of a given, but these three things really define the bird for me in a scene. Is what are they looking at? What kind of things would they be looking at with the beak that they have and the talons? So, you'll see different birds of prey that have bigger talons and different types of fishing birds like blue herons have very long beaks. So I try to keep in mind all of the features of the bird that would help tell the story about this bird. Now, this is a little bird, probably eats like bugs and seeds, right? And berries. Uh, and I don't see any of that in the scene here. So again, the context of what this bird is doing. Okay. So now in Photolab, my approach is, that's how I look at the scene and the image itself. Now in Photolab, my methodology is always to apply basic preset first, which does the noise reduction and sharpening, or it's not really sharpening, but it's an optical correction to fix any distortions, vignetting, chromatic aberrations, and also to intelligently sharpen the image based on the lens and camera combination via the optics module, which is one of the most powerful things of Photolab that no other software can claim. They have a huge database to optimize the lens, and it's taken lenses that I thought were not that great to stellar. Like my 75 to 300, when I first got it, I was like, oh, if it's a little slow, there's a lot of noise, you need a lot of light, and it's a little soft at the long end. And Photoshop has taken that lens into making it almost like pro level, in my opinion. And maybe at the end, I'll show a couple examples of that. But anyhow, what I noticed here is that there's a little. I guess I have to bring this up so you can see it. But there's a little icon here telling me that an optics module is available for this image that I have not used before. So I'm just going to click on that to bring that in. And most likely, this is it's giving me three choices. Let me see if I can tell in the EXIF data. Usually, it just gives you one option. But we have a 500 millimeter f5.6. It's a 500 f4. So I'm not sure exactly what lens this is because I'm not getting, other than it's a Nikon 500 f4. So let me go back to the optics module, and I'm just going to take a guess that this is the 500 f4 VR. Because this is a Nikon D300, which is a little bit older camera. So I'm going to pick the older of the two lenses. Uh, and you can, of course, verify this by looking at your lens when you have it, but I'm just going to do my best guess here. Okay, and it usually only takes us a couple of seconds to get the optics module in. All right, let me get rid of that. And let's apply my basic preset that I just talked about. So I'm sorry, optics modules first, and then this basic preset, which I talked about. And now I'm going to start to work on the composition. And I'm going to go to a square crop. And there's shortcut tools up here, but usually I like to go right to the panel here where the tool actually exists, rather than use the shortcut because you get more options when you pull up the panel. And I'm going to give a little bit of room to the right side, uh, more than on the left side, and try to keep the eye right on this 1/3 line, just basic composition. So I have a nice diagonal here between the beak and the talons, and then the eye here. Okay, I think that's a decent composition. And now I'm going to, let's see, let's look at the white balance. So I'm going to do a global white balance shift using the tool here. And I do see a white part on the bird, but I doubt that this part of the bird is getting maybe right over here. Okay, so compared to, let me see, the original shot is a -16 on the tint. So there's a very strong green shift here, right? So by clicking here, you can see now we're +13. So it's shifting all of the green out and then warming up the image a little bit because this is a cloudy day image because I can tell by all of the soft lighting, there's no harsh shadows. So that's why there's a shift almost to 6,000 Kelvin here, which would be a standard cloudy day preset for white balance. But I think right there, we're already looking good. Now, the background is relatively bright, so I'm going to try and temper some of that a couple of different ways with local control points and also with a little bit of a vignette. But that's just kind of I'm just thinking ahead a little bit here. But let me work on the eyes, beaks, and talon. So we'll do a control point, which has chroma and luma masking tools available. And I like to brighten not the entire head of the bird, but just the eye and the surrounding area. And I'm just going to push the shadows up like this. Now that's going to lower the contrast, right? But I'm going to offset that with a clear view. And clear view typically will uh, make the eye look a little bit shiny. Clear view is great for reducing haze and making water and any, look very glossy. And then I'm going to add some micro contrast to help bring out some of the details. This is very similar to the texture slider in Lightroom because sharpness and sharpening and all of that is all about contrast. Because technically, you achieved maximum sharpness with the raw image, and now all we're doing is adjusting contrast to bring out or to give us a higher perceived perception of sharpness. So we're going to do that, and I think I might have pushed the shadows a bit too much. So I'm going to back that off. And I can see a little bit of color in the eye. I don't know if I can bring that out. Maybe a new control point just right on the eye. And I'm going to drop the dropper right on the colored part of the eye that I can see. It may be hard to see in the stream. I'm going to bring that up and then crank up the clear view all the way and some micro contrast and just back this off a little bit. Maybe push. No, not so much there. Just going to make some minor adjustments here. I think that's good. And I like this little specular here, so I'm going to make a control point for this and just push that brighter. Okay, good. So now the eye is a little bit more alive, right? Still, the contrast is a bit low, so I'm going to pull this back here. Need to go a little stronger here. All right, that looks good. So um, just do a compare, right? This is where we were. This is where we're at now. Okay, the beak, I want to make that a little bit shiny as well. So I'm going to, now if you drop a control point and it's too small to grab onto the corner, you can just zoom in on the control point and bring it out. And I'm going to tighten up the luminosity mask because the beak is darker than the rest of the scene. That'll make it a little tighter. I'm just going to push the clear view on that, maybe the speculars, and then some of the micro contrast. And let's see how this works with the talons. If I use the same control point, yeah, it's too strong. Maybe back off some of the speculars there. Yeah, right there. That looks good. And I'll do the same thing on that talon. We'll tighten that up. Okay, very good. Now, I'm going to work on the background. And because the bird is a decent luminance or brightness, I don't really need to change that, but I do want to darken the background to separate them a little bit more. So again, I'm just going to use control points here. And you'll notice that I really, other than white balance, I haven't had to use any of the global settings like shadows, highlights, midtones, that kind of thing. And that's because this image has already been pretty well exposed. If the image was grossly underexposed or overexposed, then I would start with global settings. But most of the time, the images are decently exposed. And I'm just selecting different parts of the image here, and I'm trying to stay in the greens. Maybe a little bit behind there in terms of luminance. Okay. And another note on the control point, the masking is not limited to this circle. It does bleed over just a little bit past the uh, this circle. So keep that in mind. So I want to darken this, and I'm just going to pull this back a little bit and just darken the background. That looks good. Let's try some of the highlights as well, and the shadows. Maybe not the highlights too much. I always like a little bit of specular in my images. That's getting there. Let's just drop a couple more on different illuminated areas, like these leaves. And let's pull a little bit more. That might be too much. Okay. Let me pull off away from the bird a little bit. All right, let me see where we're at. All right, that's looking good. Now this part got a little bit clipped down too dark. So I'm just going to make a new control point for the blacks. And just, I'll do a linear push on this. Like so. All right, good. And I want to try and extract a little bit more detail in the feathers. So let me pull in a couple of more new control points. More on the yellows. Tighten that up a bit. We'll try with a little micro contrast. And down here at the bottom, there's a sharpening tool. Yeah, that looks good. And I want to make sure I only sharpen on the bird because if I sharpen the entire scene, like a lot of sharpening tools do, they're just kind of global. Then your out of focus areas start to look a little crispy as well, or get grainy, and you don't want that typically. You want the backgrounds to be as smooth as possible. So I try to limit the sharpening that I do to the subject, and it's very selective. All right, so what we're looking at now is a preview. I'm just about done. I might just throw in a vignette on top of this. So I'm going to go back to my control point, and to do a vignette, you just kind of click somewhere in the middle, drag your control point out, turn the chroma and luma to 0. Also, you want to invert this mask here, and let me spread this out a little more, and then I'm just going to do a linear pull on the exposure. And I see a couple of questions coming in. I'll get to them. I'm going to do one more image and then I'll answer all your questions there. Just a little bit there. Let me go back to the control points around here and just push this a little bit and go back to my vignette and just do a linear pull. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Um, Now, one other tool I like to look at is this loop tool to punch in to different areas. And I can adjust the zoom here like that. I just want to see how the sharpening and everything I did looks. This little window here is a preview of the output. So I just want to make sure if there's something else I can do. Let me go back to uh, let me find the control points. And if it gets confusing, you can rename these control points. You can right click and rename, and I can just call this the head like that. If you want, if it gets a little bit crazy. I'm gonna add a little bit more in here. Okay, let me get the loop tool back in. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select that, my loop tool. Okay. Let me go back to here, and I'm just going to, let me try the sharpening tool. I don't want it to get too crispy, but let me go back in and see how that did. Okay, that's a little better. I'm gonna back this off a bit. I'm gonna try it with the unsharp mask, or I can let me try and bump up the sharpening optimization here. Just a little bit more detail. Unsharp mask. I'm just clicking this on and off. It may be impossible to see this very subtle difference in the stream, but there is a little bit of a difference. Let's see how we're doing over here. I don't think I had a control point over there, did I? Let me take a look again. It's this control point. Let me rename this feathers. And I'm going to just come in again and see where we're at. Okay, I think we're good. It's a little bit crispy, so I'm going to just do a global. I'm just, I'm going to let me turn off this unsharp mask here. These are global settings here. I think the unsharp mask will be to make the image look a little bit over processed or overcooked. But I think we're done. So let's export this to the original folder. This is going to be a DxO. No resizing, sRGB for the ICC profile. And we'll just say 98%. That's fine. I typically do 93, 94%, but I'm gonna wait for this to come out. And sometimes the first export takes a little while, but usually it's about 10 or 15 seconds on my computer. But I have a pretty powerful computer too, so. All right, that wasn't so bad. Uh, so I'm gonna reset this and I'm gonna do a quick comparison with the output. And we'll do a side by side here. All right, so there's the original. As you can see, compositionally, I think the crop made a big difference right there. Warming up the image and getting rid of some of that green tint via the white balance tool. And the sharpening is not bad. It's just a little bit crispy here. I can back that off if I went back in a little bit if I wanted to. But if we zoom in before and after, I think it did a really good job of bringing out the fine details that were there. The lens is a little bit soft, but we did bring it back. I think I would go back and just back off the sharpening a little bit. Uh, but other than that, for displaying like on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you'd like to share your images, this is going to, I think, present very well. So great image, great shot. Thank you so much. Was that Rick? I think sent that in. I think we're in good shape. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So the first image, I always take a lot of time explaining my thought process. It'll get faster here as we move along. All right, so let's go to this one. We have a biker here. Need to wet my whistle. All right. So on this image here, I feel like the horizon is a little bit off. I mean, he could be driving down a hill, a- and what makes horizons tough on tight shots like this is because trees are never perfectly straight. I don't see any railing here, which is usually straight, but I'm going to tilt it just a little bit. That's probably the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to clip some of the pixels. In terms of the crop, it's already a very tight shot, and we filled the subject. But what is it about this particular scene that I find interesting, even though it's already a very tight shot? Um, and I feel like there's some potential here to crop even more. Um, Let me just apply basic preset first. Looks like I don't need an optics module. I'm going to go in and edit this. I need to look at maybe, let me just straighten it first. This is bothering me. I'm just going to eyeball it. We don't need much. And with respect to crop, I'd like the back of this person to be a little bit closer to the right side. And we've lost a little bit of the pedal here. I like the brakes and the slotted disc and the name of the bike and the headlights. But I think the expression on his face, the way he's holding or gripping the handlebars, that's kind of where the story is. And I want the back to be there. My challenge is what do I keep on the bottom? That doesn't feel right. Let me try a little bit. Let me try a 5x4. Okay, that feels a little more balanced. I'm kind of cutting off his foot a little bit, so I'm going to come down. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to save his left foot there. I like this eagle on here too. It'd been nice to kind of get more of the bottom of the bike here because there's a lot of fine details down here that draw the eye in as well. But let me tighten up a little bit more. Okay, that feels a lot more balanced. Still a little bit too much headroom. Maybe right there. Okay, that feels pretty good. So what I'm going to do is there's very strong light on him, which is normally a good thing, but it's a little bit almost to a clipping point. So I'm going to start with a global change because the image feels a little bit bright to me overall. I'm just going to pull the exposure in just a bit like that. I think that's good. About 2/3 of a stop. Good, 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 good. That looks good. Okay, now I can go back to some local adjustments here. And I want to make the bike stand out more, especially the chrome areas here. So when it comes to vehicles, it's always headlights and wheels, rims, logos, all the fine details and speculars, which this bike has a lot of. So I'm just going to do a combination of micro contrast and clear view, bring those out. And there's a lot of blue sky here that's giving the bike a little bit too much of a blue tint. So I'm going to try and back some of that off. Maybe just warm it up a little bit, see if that gives me the look I want. Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And then let's go back to the sharpening or micro contrast and really exaggerate that. All right, good. How about these little orange parts here? The turn signals and the reflector. And the slotted brakes, not so much. Okay. But we'll just push and go around the chrome, around this engine. And I'm just going to give an extra bump to the speculars. And I don't mind if speculars clip. That's perfectly fine by me. That looks really good. See the difference? This is a good example. This control point here, if I take it off, you can see how flat that looks. But now just warming it up a little bit and giving it some crispiness with the clear view and micro contrast, I think really makes a difference. And that's what's kind of going on all around the bike that may be difficult to see in the stream. So I'm just going to continue hitting some of the parts because this bike has a lot of chrome. Maybe the chrome bits here and there. All right, very good. Uh, Now what I want to do is this background's just a little bit busy. So maybe let me see if I can temper this with exposure just a bit. So I'm dropping my control points on the brighter parts. I'm going to tighten up the Luma mask just about five or six. I'm going to keep it away from the bike. Back this off a bit, especially right in here. Let me check this control point. This one's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. Okay. Uh, Maybe I don't need to be at +5. We'll just leave it at 50. All right, let me just do a linear pull. Just darken that. I might need a little bit in here and down here. A little bit there. And a little bit inside here and here. I'm just going to desaturate as well. Let's try just pulling on both these sliders a little bit. In the background, also I'm going to try and cool it off a little bit as well. Because the subject itself is very warm, so I'm going to cool off the background to just give it a little more separation. And I try to stay within 500 Kelvin. Anytime I make white balance changes, I try not to do plus or minus 500 more than that. So in this case, I think about a 49, because otherwise it starts to look a little baked or unnatural if you do too much. So at least that's my kind of threshold is around 500 Kelvin. All right, that looks pretty awesome. I think the face looks good. And in terms of exposure, it's a little bit red in the face. So compared to this tan arms, right? So I'm going to just drop a little bit of warmth right in here. Maybe back off some of the magenta. And a slight pull on the highlights right about there. All right, and then one last control point. There's a little bit of a specular on his helmet that I want to bring out. I'll tighten that up there, and the sunglasses. Just give them a little bit of bite. Okay, now let's use the loop tool and see how the details are. Okay. Uh, Not bad. I think I can tighten that up a little bit more. So we'll start with the skin here. Let me go to a global. Let's put +1 here and see, and slide the details up. And I think a little unsharp mask wouldn't hurt. But I'm going to push the radius of the unsharp mask out because there's just a little bit softness in there. Let's try 2 pixels and a little bit of a push there. Again, I try to be conservative here as well. Now I'm going to push this up to about a 10. Not that much. Let's go to, I guess 4 looks good. Maybe a 3 or 2. Okay. All right, I think that looks pretty awesome. Let me just see where we're at. Okay. All right, I'm going to export this. And let's go back to the library. We'll wait for that to export. And then I'll go to the chat and take a couple questions. So let's compare this to the output. Whoops. On a side by side. All right, so compositionally, I think this this little bit tighter crop helps quite a bit, and then straightening the horizon, and also bring out some of the contrast. I may have made his face is still a little bit red. I let me try and fix that. Uh, I'm gonna try and fix this redness. So I'm gonna undo those changes. So the local adjustment, I think it was this. Yeah. The way I can do that is I can just go to the red uh, HSL wheel and just pull out the red directly. There, that's better. Let me export that. Again, very, very subtle changes, right? And then once that's done, we can reset it and we'll do a side by side here. So it's a great image to start with, but I think bringing out the speculars, uh, and then this little bit of orange glow over here, I think looks nice. Because these are probably tungsten lights anyway. Not that I want them to look like they're turned on, but I just wanted to give it sort of a natural look. Maybe a better way is to look at it this way. So that's the original, and then this is the edit. And I think that looks pretty awesome. This is a great shot. Um, and if we get into the fine details, you can see what a nice job DxO does. And it takes a little finesse to kind of sharpen without looking, over sharpened. But I think I nailed it here. I think that looks really good compared to that, right? I would have done a little more on the watch maybe, but uh, I think this came out really good. So awesome. All right. Let me go to the chat just for a couple of minutes and then we will, because I did see a couple of questions. So I see a lot of people here. Kevin's here, William's here, Rick, good to see you guys. Happy 4th of July. And Roger, good to see you. And Jeff, always good to see you. Uh, Samsung is actually surprisingly, but give the watermark. Okay, I'm not sure what you guys are talking about there. Happy Independence Day. Thank you, Jeff. And let's see. Uh, be careful with any kind of like uh, criticisms of in politics, because that can mess up the stream in terms of getting views, right? Like YouTube might decide, yeah, this is kind of political. I don't want to share this video as much, right? So I'd appreciate if you guys, not that I care, you guys can think whatever you want. It's a free country, right? But uh, as far as YouTube goes, they might restrict my stuff here. And not that I'm getting monetized off the advertising here, but the more views I get, the more exposures, the better. Okay, let's see. Here's one. Paul says, I've been running the free trial of Pure Raw 5 to see the difference with deep prime versions to improve things. I'm not seeing a huge difference, so I'll probably wait for Pure Raw 9. Still on 7 at the moment. Yes. The only major differences, right? Uh, so you're on, yeah, if you have DxO Photolab, you don't need Pure Raw, okay? If you have the Elite version, which is, I think, pretty much the only thing they sell now, you don't need Pure Raw 5. You don't even need Pure Raw 9. Just upgrade your Photolab 7. Between Photolab 7 and Photolab 8, uh, there's not a lot of differences. There were some differences in the workflow, like the loop tool that I showed you, and gosh, off the top of my head, I can't remember everything. But there's a few differences in the workflow that I like. Uh, but DxO sends me a copy of the latest version every year. But if it were my money, yeah, I'd stay with Photolab 7 and wait for Photolab 9. And don't even think about Pure Raw. I assume that's what you're talking about. Uh, is that you have Photolab 7. The image quality and the output is pretty much the same. The differences are very, very, very subtle. It's really in the tools and workflow that they make the biggest improvements from one version to the next at this point in terms of upgrade. We'll see what Photolab 9 brings. Again, if it's, I'd like to see some improvements in some of the tools and a little more flexibility, like being able to adjust white balance, and tint on JPEGs rather than just having a simple white balance slider. Just little things I'd like to see improved. Uh, but yeah, I would be happy with Photolab 6, Photolab 7, from 6 to 8, there's enough workflow improvements. I think if you're on 6, it's a good idea to upgrade to 8. If you're on 7, yeah, I would skip a version. That's always a good rule of thumb, right? Skip a version before you upgrade, typically. So I concur with your assessment there. And then Roger says, if I shoot in focus stacking in RAW, is the OM workspace stacked image a JPEG? Yes. So you're shooting RAW and you do in-camera focus stacking. The stacked image in camera will be JPEG. I'm sorry, was there more to that? Just wondering if DxO can be used after the stack. Yeah, definitely. DxO doesn't do any stacking, but you can edit the stacked image, the JPEG, directly. And it's probably better to have a separate stacking software. This one of the limitations of Photolab, it doesn't have like these extra tools, right? It is strictly for editing the photo, not for doing stacking or layering, so to speak. Uh, Although the in-camera stack At low ISO, if you're at low ISO, say below 1600, the in-camera stack JPEG created is very easy to edit. So many exposures right and everything. Then I would do that. However, I noticed when the ISO gets up to 3200, 6400 for in-camera stacking, there is noise reduction inherently done on two levels: JPEG noise reduction, right, when it's creating the JPEG for the stack, and also because it's stacking in of itself reduces noise, increases sharpness, all of that, all of the wonderful things that stacking does. But even at 3200 to 6400, the challenge I'm running into is the JPEG artifacts when you're pixel peeping. If you look at the full image, it's no problem. If you look at it at normal viewing distance, you don't see the JPEG artifacts, but I'm a pixel peeper and I want the very fine details in the hairs of the insects or whatever it is I'm taking a picture of. But it's usually the fine hairs, and if you have a lot of negative space in the scene, you can see the JPEG artifacts when you start getting the ISO 3200, 6400. And I'm talking about, uh, the JPEG artifacts. So no problem editing 1600 and below because the stacking gets rid of most of the noise and there's not too many artifacts, especially at ISO 200. Or if there's not a lot of negative space and fine hairs, let's say I took a focus stacked image of a frog. You're not going to see the JPEG artifacts because it's a very busy texture, right, in the scene. But when you have clear skies or smooth, glassy water, that's when you start to see the JPEG artifacts in high ISO stacked images. So just be aware of that. Uh, and there's no deep prime denoising available in JPEGs. It's only for raw images, which makes sense. Okay, and then Claire is here. Claire, good to see you. And I just sent a photo. Okay, I'll take a look at it. I have to finish by 11 today, so we'll see. Because it's 4th of July, I got family things planned later today that I have to get to. Maybe 11:30 if it goes that long. And good morning, Paul. Good to see you. Uh, Robin, Photolab 8, are you able to add more default aspect ratios? Yes. So, uh, for example, this image here, let me customize. This image here, I can crop one by one, right? But let's say you can see I have custom ratios down here. It's probably hard to see. I forgot to enlarge my fonts here. Let me enlarge the fonts. Uh-oh. Okay. Had a little freeze there for a second, scared me. Okay. So over here, uh, I've created my own crops, 13 by 19, which, for my prints, 16 by 7, which is a typical panorama, 17 by 11. I can't remember why I made that one. And then a 65 by 24, which is also very, very wide, cinematic wide, right? So what you do, you just click on Enter Custom Ratio, and then you can just put in, let's say I want to make a 7 by 16. I just type it in like that. Let me enter custom ratio. Let's try something weird like a 7 by 2. So that's all I do. 7x2, something weird. And I can get rid of it, just click the trash button here because I'm never going to use it again. this must be for a different kind of print. I don't know why. Oh, so yeah, that's for my printing. I haven't printed large in a while, so I forgot what I made this for. I have certain frames that I have for printing. Okay. Uh, let's see. Let me go back to the chat. Rob, when you export and it is then DxO, can you bring it into Lightroom or Photoshop? Yes. So there's a couple ways to export, right? So like the image I just did for Jeff, I can export this finished image like this. The best way to do it is export to application and then export it as a TIFF into, I use Photoshop the most. I thought there was a plugin to export this to Lightroom directly. Let's give me a second. Yeah, here it is. Export to Lightroom right here. So I can export this as a JPEG or as a TIFF. TIFF is probably the best way to export it if you want to continue editing there. Make sure your ICC profile instead is as shot rather than sRGB. Do it as shot, or just to be safe, you can export as ProPhoto because this is the color profile that Adobe uses, Lightroom uses when it's editing. So you can export as ProPhoto RGB, so you maximize the color space when it goes over. Um, so I'm just reading your question again. When you export and then it's DxO, can you bring? Yeah. So that's typically the best way to do it. Uh, but if you want to export to Photoshop directly, you would do it here and export as TIFF, leave the ICC profile as shot, and start editing that way. You don't really lose. I'm still a little bit fuzzy here. If you lose some colors based on the RGB profile, ICC profile you export as, you shouldn't because it's still a raw image. TIFF is basically a raw image. But I could do it this way. The important thing is when I export it as a JPEG to share, that I make sure I choose sRGB. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. And Marco's here. Hey, happy 4th, Marco. Good to see you. And Rick says that was a great edit of the warbler. Oh, you're welcome, Rick. Thank you for sending it in. I appreciate it. And I'm seeing a little bit of a delay here on my screen. I might have to exit and come back. You don't have to change streams, but I might have to restart OBS. Roger, so I guess my question was the stacking done in Workspace, not in camera. Oh, in Workspace, still give you a JPEG, or is there stacking software that gives you a raw image? I don't know. I haven't used the in-camera stacking in Workspace. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, Roger. That's not something I know. I mean, it's something you can figure out pretty quickly, right? Just take some images and stack them. Or is there stacking software that gives you raw image? There is. Uh, I typically use Photoshop though, but there's free software like Picolay that I believe can work with TIFF images and export as a TIFF image. Let me just let me see Picolay. I would try this one. Stacking parameters, file. I would try this software here, Picolay. It's free, and see if that exports as a TIFF. I've never really paid attention. Let me see if I have any. Uh, oh, you didn't see my screen. I'm sorry. Let me let me pull up my screen. I was looking at Picolay, this app here. I use this app sometimes, uh, but I usually just use Photoshop. Photoshop does a little better job in aligning images. But if the images, like if you're shooting an image with a off a tripod, Picolay works great. But it's when the images start like handheld focus stacking, where the image is moving around a lot, Picolay struggles a bit. But let me go up to, let's see. I was working all in JPEG here. How about the B? And then the final stacked image is what? Yeah. So I exported as BMP. This is where Picolay struggles a little bit because this was a handheld stack and I'm just getting all kinds of artifacts. Try Picolay. Picolay, BMP is not quite raw, but it's pretty much a raw image. It's just an uncompressed. But Picolay will work with TIFF files, and I believe it'll export as a TIFF file. I'm not sure why I exported as. Oh, I have two sets. I have BMP and I was experimenting here. But Picolay will work with TIFF files. That's about the closest I'll get to export, working with a final stacked raw image. Okay. FYI, my version of Photolab don't see enter custom ratio, but I can still enter custom ratio as Rob did. Oh, okay, good. So I guess like it's a little tiny workflow things from one version to the next. That's a little one. But thank you for sharing that. And Henning says, "Ahoy, friends! Late to the party. We'll watch from the beginning afterwards. Have a nice sunny day." Oh, you too, Henning. Thanks for dropping in. And that was the last one. Okay, so let's go back to editing, and I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. So I have one here from Paul. A little bit of crookedness here. It's almost like because everything is pretty much straight except this building. I think this building is intentionally crooked. That's a tough one because this is, there's no hard straight line here, but the horizon is very straight. Let me apply basic preset first, and then let me go to the horizon. Let me just use the horizon line this time. So yeah, very little to correct there, 0.08. So this building is crooked, so we're going to leave it. Normally I would try and fix that, but I think this building is actually crooked. All right, now compositionally, I feel like there's a lot of detail here in the sky we can bring back. There's good drama leading up to the boardwalk here. So, I kind of like the drama in the water more than the sky. So I'm going to clip off the sky. I think maybe a square crop might do it. Or let's go back to 5 by 4. I don't need quite as much sky there, but I do like I think just a little bit tighter for me works. I don't think there's anything here horizontally. If I can look. If I do that, yeah, this crooked building is driving me nuts. Why didn't somebody straighten that? It's like that leaning tower of pizza. It bothers me. Uh, Actually, I like this composition better. The vertical just didn't work for me. Let me look at the vertical again. I do like this water though. But if I do this, do I lose the water? No. I still got good drama in the water. You can come right up to the edge. This feels a little more balanced too for me. I need just a little bit more room above the tower. All right, I'm gonna go with that. Uh, yeah, that damn building. Okay. The exposure is good, so I'm just gonna work with some local adjustments. Let's just start with the low-hanging fruit here with the sky. Clearview does a good job. We'll pull the highlights a tiny bit and some micro contrast. And maybe just push the blues a little bit more. Spread that out a bit. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Yeah, that looks good. And we're gonna amplify the light on this side, and maybe I wanna make sure I bring out some good texture in this building because the light is coming in from the right. So maybe just a linear control line like this, like this. Maybe tighten up the chroma and luma. So I don't want to affect the sky. Okay, let's try and push just in the shadows. Might need a little bit in the midtones as well. Okay, good. That looks good. I'll just pull the highlight a tiny bit, but a little bit more push. Let's add a little micro contrast and just a tiny bit of warmth. Again, around 500 Kelvin. And then we'll do the opposite on the other side. So we'll make a new control line, maybe to about there. Tighten up the chroma and luma. I'll start at around 5. That's good. Let's back this off a bit and go right there. Little micro contrast and just a little bit of coolness. Back it off. Ooh, maybe nothing. We're at 6,000. Try 59. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to do too much. Now we have a 600 Kelvin spread from the right to the left. That's a little bit strong, but that's okay. Uh, Let me look at that control line. I think I can tilt it a bit. It's going to tilt it like that. All right, now I'm going to go to the control point and work on this door, make a new one. So I'm going to hit the plus sign. Let me zoom in and grab this. And I'm going to tighten up the chroma and the luma just a bit. Okay. And let's push the shadows, give it some clear view and some micro contrast. How about some color? Let's see if we can bring a little bit of that back. Yeah, that looks good. All right, now these windows up here, I'm gonna make a new control point. I just want these windows to be a little bit darker than the sky itself, because right now they're a little bit too transparent. So let's try clear view, maybe a slight pull. No, yeah, just a linear pull. That's good enough. More clear view, yeah, a little bit there. Okay. Nothing really to contrast, but I'll just throw in a little contrast for good measure. All right, let me zoom in on this building. So it's basically cement. So there's not a lot of brickwork to bring out. Okay, now the ground here, we got a good shadow here, a little bit of a highlights in here, but the sidewalk is wet. So I want to try and make this sidewalk look even wetter. I'll just do that with control points. I may have missed a question about how do you duplicate control points. Once you create one, as you click along, like I'm doing here, it's automatically duplicating. So any changes I make to one affect them all, as you can see. So it's very, very simple. And if I want to make a different control point, I hit the plus sign right here and I make a new one. All right, so I'm going to try some clear view to make this a little bit shinier. And then let's pull the blacks in. Because there's a little bit too much reflectivity there. Let me spread this one out a bit. Okay. How about the shadows? All right. Let's see. Before and after. Okay, let's do a new control line. And this duplication is the same for all the tools. See if I can just make the water a little bit more dramatic. Yeah, that's not working. Let's see. Let me put this dropper here on a dark part. And I'm going to make a new control line. I'm going to put the dropper on a brighter part. like that. And let's just push. That's not cutting it. Let's tighten up the chroma. Yeah, the chroma will be good. And the luma. That's good. Let's see if I can bring out some of the speculars. Normally, I don't push these sliders that high, but since there's very little separation in the tones and colors here, I have to make the mask as tight as possible. Make sure I got this dropper right on the brightest part. Okay. Tighten this up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go back to the other one. And let's put this right there. And I'm going to tighten up the chroma and luma on this one too. Yeah, that looks good. All right, I'm going to call it there. So let's export. And Paul says, I knew that tower is going to drive you mad. Yeah, that is driving me nuts. Ah, we all have our sort of our triggers, right? When it comes to life in general. That's one of them, man. When something's crooked, it just drives me nuts. Okay, reset. We'll do a compare side by side. All right, so here's the original on the right and my edit on the left. And like I said in the beginning, I really like the water here, this drama. Uh, so all I had to do really is just bring the textures in the rest of the scene. Compositionally, this vertical is not bad. I just feel like going vertical exaggerates this crookedness even more. Whereas going horizontal, it doesn't feel quite as crooked, but it's still crooked. It bothers me. Also, with architecture, always windows and doors are key. So since there wasn't much here with the windows, all I could do is darken them a little bit, so it doesn't feel like they're transparent, but actually giving off a little bit of reflectivity there. And then the door here, just bringing out the color a little bit. So let's do a split with a larger view. And, that's the before and that's the after. And I think that looks pretty good. And if we just want to check some of the details, I think, yeah, like even this little bird up here, but look at the difference in the clouds right here compared to, down here. And the texture in the building, I think this came out great. The grass, everything looks good. And I like the horizontal 5x4 composition a little better. All right, let's do the next one. And okay, we have a bird. Oh, it's a seagull. Okay. Let's apply basic preset, then straighten the horizon. And I'm going to go here. Yeah, I can just draw a line. Maybe I'll just use this, something like that. Yeah, that looks good. And let's get in a little bit tighter. Whoops. I don't think, well, a 1x1's not bad, but I kind of like a little bit wider shot for this one. But I just need to crop in differently. Because I like the houses in the background. I wonder if I do something a little bit different. I kind of like that. Uh, okay. So let's make the background a little darker, maybe a control line. And we'll put this on a greenish area and tighten up the chroma mask a little bit. And then do a linear darkening like that. Okay. And then the bird, let's bring out just a little bit more fine details. All we have is the eyes and beak here, so I'm just gonna just make one larger one here. Let's tighten up the luma mask a bit. Now let's try chroma. Okay. And let's just push the midtones. Some clear view and some micro contrast. Wonder if that'll work on the rest. This bird's got a little blur. What's your shutter speed? Oh, 1250. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a little bit smaller bird. I would be at least 1/2000th for a bird like this because I'm seeing just a tiny bit of motion blur in this when I get up close. Or I think it's motion blur. So we'll try and minimize that with some control points. So let's make a new control point. Just go around the bird a little bit. DxO has a auto masking tool that works pretty well, but control points are just as fast for me, especially when there's good separation. Uh, so I'm just going to separate via chroma. Just 5, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to really punch in here and let's try micro contrast and sharpness. Okay, that's all right. It's not great. Yeah, this is definitely motion blur. Got a little bit of clear view, a little bit of push in the shadows and highlights. How about a pull? No, just a slight push, maybe a little more contrast. Okay. Uh, and maybe a slight push on the exposure. Okay, let me go back to this control line. I'm gonna bring this down like so. And I think that's it. So let's export that. And reset. We'll do it side by side. All right, so this image here, uh, really we just need to separate the bird a little bit more from the background. So I just made the background darker by making the greens darker, right? Selectively using a control line. The houses and things, I wanted to leave it at roughly that brightness. I really like the houses in this scene. And I like this composition that I made for it, putting the bird way off center and towards the edge, flying out of the frame. And the story here for me is where this bird is, you know, because of the houses in the background, I think really helped tell the story of this image. Because if I had just cropped into the bird very tight here, you wouldn't get a sense of depth, I guess, right? I think the image has really good sense of depth now. So let's do a larger screen and just slide it. So there's the original. And then as I slide in, you can see the difference. Let's look at the finer details if we can. So yeah, this bird, there's definitely motion blur there, but I did my best to bring out the details. But yeah, it's not the perfect shot in terms of shutter speed, I think, is part of the problem there. But overall, I think that composition came out really nice. It's not your typical composition like rule of thirds or, front and center, fill the frame. This is a little bit different and I think tells the story a little better. All right, let's see what else we got. That was from John. Great shot, John. I like it. Oh, you know what? Oh, no, we're good. We're good. All right. Sorry. Let's go to the next one. And we have a fisheye. 8 millimeter fisheye. So yeah, I think I'm gonna do that correction, but I'm gonna lose this curtain. I like this little bit of framing here. But let's apply basic preset first and see what. Yeah, I like that better. And I just need to crop in a little bit because it's not perfectly. Let's see where our lines are at. I'm gonna line here. It's a little bit. Try perspective correction. Okay, that's better. I did see some perspective disorder here. All right, let's go with that. So I'm going to separate uh, the right side by making it glossier and the left side, a little bit more natural, just to emphasize this reflection. So I think a control line will do it. It's a little bit underexposed, I guess, to preserve the highlights. So we'll leave that. I'm going to have to locally adjust these. So let me do this. And let's see what we get on the shadows. Add some clear view just to exaggerate the reflections and some micro contrast and a slight pull in the highlights. And I didn't crop in quite right. Let me go up a little bit more. I need to go a little more because the corner will come in a little bit tighter. Okay, that's good. Now I got my corners almost right there. Okay. I wanted the corners to have kind of the lines going into it. It needs a slight tilt. Just a slight. Okay. All right. And then the left side, let's do another control line. Again, put the dropper somewhere in the darker area, push the shadows. And then do another control line for the highlights. And pull the highlights in. Add some clear view. This needs some micro contrast, the building, just to bring out the brickwork. Maybe not that much. All right, good. Let me go back to this control line. Let's duplicate that up here. and just do a slight pull on the highlights. Yeah, that's a duplicate, so the highlights are pulled. All right, now the streets need to be darker. Even though this building is very dark, let me try. Let me try new control line. I may, yeah, I think control points will be better. I can just kind of dot them along like this. Bring that in. What I want to do is just pull the blacks. Yeah, perfect. Should have mid-tone there a little bit of clear view, some micro contrast for some grit. Okay. Maybe not. I think it's already gritty enough. Let's see a little bit there. To pull these back a little bit. How about in the window? No, not the window. The window's already kind of maxed out here. Let me move this. That helps. Okay. All right, this building, I need to push the shadows a bit more. Maybe the blacks. Okay, it's affecting because this is a control line. It's affecting the streets. So I'm going to go back to the streets and just pull the shadows back down. I'm going to have to kind of toggle between the control line and the control points until they get back to normal. This is not the best workflow for this kind of street, but since I'm already kind of committed to it, I need to I need to keep going. Otherwise, I'd have to start over. I'd have to think I should have had a different workflow to do this, but I think we're okay. And then I like this little splash of green, so I want to emphasize that. So I just put a control point in here on the green, tighten up the chroma a little bit, and then let's do vibrance and saturation. I think that's a nice accent there to the image. Okay, I think that's pretty dramatic. Let me see if I can do sort of a global push on the shadows. Just there and a little bit of pull. Maybe a little more drama here. Let me see if I can bring that out. So we'll do a control point, clear view, pull on the highlights. Yeah, a little bit of micro contrast. Maybe not that much up there, but right there is good. Let's do a new one. See if we can pull the highlights a tiny bit and some micro contrast. Yeah. All right. White balance is a little bit, these windows, there's kind of a little bit too much blue. Let me just use a control line and pull some of the blue out here. just directly. Right in there. Maybe some of the greens as well. And I'm going to emphasize, I see a little bit of red or orange in there. So let me spread out this side. Something like that. All right, now I'm done. Okay, so let's export this. I don't see the Punisher skull you guys are talking about. Ah, and Paul, just a quick answer. Just email it to me, Paul. Rob@robtrek.com. Okay, let's reset. Just do a side by side. All right, so there's the original. I like straight lines. Also, I like leading lines in these kind of shots, and then it's a reflection. So I wanted to separate the reflection or make it a little more obvious that it's a reflection. So this is a little bit darker, a little shinier, grittier in the reflection side. And then also the leading lines. So I have a leading line coming out of this corner, and then centering this line with perspective corrections and other things I did along the way. The colors are a little bit rich, particularly the blue. I might back that off in a revision, like if I were to continue editing this. But I think overall, uh, this is a pretty nice clean edit. It's just still a little bit too blue. Maybe a slight shift in the white balance. But that's the direction I would go from here. Okay, let's do this one here. And actually, give me a minute. I need to take a 1 minute break. 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. Okay. All right, so I think this one I might need an optics module. Let me check. Yeah, so let me download that. I always forget to do that. Uh, so we have a kit lens with an EP5, another new camera lens combo for the stream. Never, this kit lens, the Easy Pick lens is so good. I feel like it's optically a little bit sharper than the regular kit lens. And this is the lens keeps me from buying the 12 to 45 Pros because the kit lens is so good. Uh, the f4 12 to 45 Pro. All right, so we have that. Uh, let's apply the basic preset first. And compositionally, I think we're okay. I don't think I need to make any changes. I like the composition. We just have to temper the background a little bit. So I'll do that with just some control points like this. And we'll just do a linear pull, maybe a little bit on the highlights. Okay. One up here. I like this little splash of pink. Okay, let's get a new control point. And on bugs, let's do a linear push here. And then a little bit in the shadows down here as well. A bit tighter. And then we'll add some clear view, or let's try micro contrast first. That looks good. Maybe a little clear view. A little push on the speculars. All right, let's see where we're at. Just a little bit too much there. Maybe one stop. That looks good. Nice straight line here, diagonal. I always, just as a reminder, I don't like a zigzag pattern here. I always like it to be as smooth as possible when I'm working with these tones. I'm going to temper the brightness down here a bit. Let's see. Let's use the same control point here and here. Okay. And here. A little bit inside there. All right. I think that's all that needs to be done here. So I'll export that. And when that's ready, we will do side by side. Not much difference there, but it didn't need to be. We just had to bring the shadows up a little bit over here. The composition I already like, and then just temper the background a tiny bit. Maybe, let me just do a little bit more. Uh, it's the background that needs more work. Maybe I can exaggerate this whole sense here. And then I will push these out a little bit more. Let me tighten up the chroma just a bit. Make it a little brighter. Temper those highlights. All right, now I'm done. Wait for that. So we'll do a side by side. So yeah, I think this works. I might saturate the yellows and the B a little bit more. Yeah, let me do that. Make a new control point just on the yellow. So we'll tighten up the chroma a tiny bit. And let's spread this to the yellows and then push. Maybe temper the highlights a bit. Let's spread this in. Spread that a little. Yeah. All right, now I'm done, definitely. Okay, so let's export, overwrite. Then we will compare. Okay, so here's my edit on the left. A little bit too much saturation here, but it's okay. I think it looks pretty good. We just mainly had to temper the background and then bring out the foreground. And I think in terms of detail, let's just zoom in on this bee and the flower. I mean, you can see it's a little bit soft here. And this is what I mean about the optical corrections and how good this lens is with DxO. It just really brings out so much detail. It's just shocking. Okay, let's go to the next one. So thank you, Adam, for sending that one. I have one here. Okay, good action shot. Let's apply basic preset. This is not my genre. I'm really bad at these kind of photos. So I have to look at this. This is going to take me a little bit of thinking here. Ugh. So we have a lot of different elements here. The tricky part is this guy in the background behind this guy kicking the ball is the problem for me. So I think uh, maybe do this ball a little bit. All right. Compositionally, I'm not sure what I would do here. Maybe have the guy running out of the frame. We don't need that ball. come down. Okay, I think that's a little better, a little more balanced. Now, I want to separate the background a little bit. It's already blurry, but I feel like let me just do a global pull. I already do, yeah, I did that. Okay. I'm just gonna darken the image globally and then go back and brighten the areas that I want to brighten using the local control points. So let's do this. Yeah, a little bit tighter here and here. Just push it a little more. That's a little bit too bright in there. Let me do a separate control point for that. I just want a little bit more here. Right there. A little bit more on the front. This shoe and this shoe. I'm going to darken this leg here. Tighten up the luma. Okay, and then I need to tighten up the masks in here a bit. Good, good, good. A bit more on the shoe. Maybe towards the back. So a little bit of a hit there. All right, we'll call it there. This was a hard one for me actually. I'm not sure what else to do because it's not. I'm not a sports action type guy, so this was a little challenging for me. The colors. Let me see. The white balance could do a little bit warmer. And then this this control point. I need it to be. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Let me export that one. And then we'll do a side by side with the rest. All right, so here's the original on the right. And I should have darkened right in here a little bit more. But I just wanted this player to stand out a little more against everything else going on. And so it's a really great action shot. But you can see this whole frame, they're front and center, which is fine when you take the shot. Then I think in post, this composition is a little bit nicer. Um, I think that works. And then, making the guy see the image is very flat in terms of tones, right? There's not like highlights and shadows that are really contrasting a whole lot. So just bringing this out, I think makes a big difference. Okay. Uh, let's see. I think we're good. So there was a couple of comments about. Let me go back to the chat here. So this is my first time catching a live photo editing session. Happy 4th. Hey, Butters, thank you for dropping in. I really appreciate it. And let's see. And you really like the reflection shot. I try to look for these types of shots when I'm in amongst buildings. Good job. Thank you, Paul. And okay, Paul sent in an edit. And then Jason says, hey, Jason says, thanks, Rob. Great to have another pair of eyes going over one of my photos. You nailed it regarding the player behind the main subject. I went with a portrait crop, but mainly because I wanted to print it. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. And then Marcia says, my first time home able to see live edits. My Wetlands Visitor Center is closed today. I volunteer there every Friday. Oh, no wonder you're not here on Fridays. But yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to go to the wetlands every Friday. Okay, let me check I gotta open up another window. Why is this weird? Wow, there's like three more images came in. So if you guys are here, I can do some quick edits on them, but I can't walk through all of the whatchamacallits. I'm not gonna walk through everything I'm thinking about. Well, I can't help it though, right? They're downloading. 1 second. One more. Got a monkey, a piano player, and a model here. Let me see if they came in. I love the word monkey. Monkey just that word just cracks me up. I don't know why. Okay, 4 live edits. Drop those in there, and then download. Okay. All right. Uh We will be there in 2 seconds. Okay. So let's see. This is Paul's edit. Let's compare that to mine. So Paul didn't like the overall vertical either, but you kept more of the sky. I went, I'm just, in terms of overall composition, I'm just comparing our thought process. And I went more with the water, you went more with the sky. So yeah, the sky is pretty dramatic too, actually, when the way you edit it, that looks pretty good. And I also see you really emphasize the shadows more with the front side. So a lot of similarities here in the overall thought process, other than the decision to go with the sky rather than the water like I did. And then of course black and white, right? The black and white always looks good. So interesting. Uh, I think a horizontal, like more of a more of a landscape crop works better for me because this building is so heavy. I wanted to add more weight to the right side, but then a square crop actually works too. So either way looks good. Okay, let's see. Oops. Okay, let's start here with the piano. And this is distracting here. Apply basic preset, and what I might do is a vertical and just come in. Although I hate to lose the ambience of this location and all the texture in this piano. It's just this left corner is the problem. If I can minimize that, okay, let me just do a basic perspective correction. Didn't do much there. I'm going to temper this wall a bit. So let's do a tighter chroma, definitely luma, and just bring it down a bit. And then let's do another control. Well, let's do control points for this piano. I really want to bring out the texture. So lots of micro contrast, maybe a clear view. And let's see if I can minimize this thing. Just make it darker. That's fine. Smooth that out a bit. Okay. And let's temper the highlight on the seat. Just bring that in a bit. And then let's brighten up the face. I may need to work with the hair a bit too. push the speculars a bit. And then I'm going to pull back the redness a little bit. Maybe shift it a little bit warmer. Yeah, that looks better. Shift it that way. Okay. This piano, can I push the reds here? Just to separate some of the, you just need more contrast or something. Here, a little more sharpening, micro contrast. Okay, let's compare that. We need a slight white balance shift as well. Maybe this chair. Where are we at? We're at 46. Let's go to up 5,000. Must be under fluorescent lighting. There's a strong pull on the magentas here. Okay, that works. Compare with this output and reset. All right, so I like the context of this being, this power box and this power pole here with the cement wall. It kind of goes with this kind of rustic looking piano. I feel a little bad that we lost the leg here, but that's okay. I just exaggerated the texture in the piano itself, and just pulled back some of the reds in the face and warmed up the image a little. So I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, this is really distracting. This and this. I get it. It can't be helped. You're already probably at a pretty tight focal length. This is very compressed as it is. It's curious. Yeah, you're at 56 millimeters on a micro four thirds. So this is a 100 millimeter lens, right? Effectively field of view. But okay, let's do the monkey. Oh, okay. All right, this one composition's good. I like the little tree up here. And this branch, yeah, this is great. We just have to light up the monkey a little bit more. So the monkey just needs some fill light, basically. So let's apply a basic preset. Needs a little fill light and some speculars in the eyes. So let's just try. Stay in the darker areas. Let's tighten up the luma and just push the shadows. Just give it a little fill on the speculars. Okay, that's enough. And then let's do the face. So we'll use a control point. Let's see. Right in here is probably good. And let's just give that a little bit extra boost and overall. And then let's do the eyes and hands. I'm going to come in here and here. Give a little push and some clear view, some micro contrast. And let's do the hands. I just want to give the hands a little bit of a push with some micro contrast. Hold on, the eyes. Let me spread that out a bit more. I tighten up the chroma. There we go. We'll push the speculars. Nope. Let's do that separate. So there's a tiny specular here, and here, and here. Just push the highlights there. All right. And then I can probably get away with a little less shadow boost. Almost like this left eye. I mean, on the right side, it's their left eye needs a little more boost than the right. I'm going to make a new one. Just give it a little bit extra. Clear view and some contrast. Okay. And the head is a little bit too strong. Okay, just some contrast. And this control line, if I did it this way, I think that looks better. Let's go down. Whoops. So what am I doing? I'm doing a little bit too much on the highlights. Let's tighten that one up. This eye, this eye is a problem. Okay. Um, this original control line, let's just give it a slight pull on the highlights. Okay. Let's export that. Uh, Shoot. It's a little bit too much shadow here. Let me, this one, this one I did too much. Okay, let's do that. Okay, that's a little better. Uh, I would still like this right side to be a little darker, but that's the direction I'm going. Composition is perfect. Everything looks good. The only thing is, uh, you just need a little bit of fill light. I kind of overdid it still over here. I'm gonna have to back that off a little more, but that's pretty much what I would do. Um, and the oranges are a little bit strong. Can't help myself. But let me go back to this control point. Let me just desaturate a bit, and then just forget about filling that in at all. It needs a little. Okay, that's good. That's what I would do. All right, let's do yeah, that's about right. That looks good. And a little bit of fill in here, so we're good. Okay. And then one more. I'm sorry I'm rushing because I have to go in a few minutes. Um, let's work on this one. Same thing. We need to temper the background and brighten up the foreground, the subject that is. So I'm just going to let's apply basic preset, and let's just do a global pull, and then we'll brighten the subject individually with control points. Like, just need one for the face and arm, maybe this shadowy part. We'll do that separate. Let's work with, just do a push here. Definitely pushing the shadows and midtones. And then we need to brighten the eyes a bit. Push the highlights. That's good. Move this up a bit. Okay. A little bit more there and there. Okay. All right, the dress. Let's see if we can temper the highlights there just a tiny bit because they're a little bit clipped. Right? Yeah, I did all that. Okay, good. And then we need to bring the shadows up on the same dress. So we'll start a new control point. And let's tighten up the chroma definitely. And the luma. Maybe just a linear push. Then a push to the highlights. Uh, a little bit there, a little bit here. See where we're at. All right, good. Uh, Need a slight horizon correction. Oh, crap. Okay, this is another thing version 9 needs to fix is when I make control points and then I change the horizon or composition, the control points don't follow. I think right about there is good. I need to fix my control points now. Ugh, needs to come in here and here. I think these are okay where they are. Those don't need to be fixed. This needs to come in a little bit, and these are all good. Okay. All right, let's fix one or two spots on our face, and we'll just use a healing brush. I'm going to turn the opacity down to around 50%. We'll do repair. Use a little smaller brush and just fix that spot. Just make it a little less obvious. I don't want to eliminate it, but I just want to temper it a bit. Uh, like that. Okay. Let me see if I push this a little higher. Why am I not seeing here? Okay. All right. I see where we're at. Okay, we just need this needs to be a little less bright. Like that. Maybe actually maybe I should just fix those all together. That's better. All right. And then if I go back to this control point, just give it a little linear push. A little bit more specular in here. Let me see. Yeah, that's good. And then in terms of color, let's try a portrait. Yeah, that looks good. Portrait 2 looks good. Kind of like kind of like natural is this. Kind of like portrait 3 in this case. It's very subjective, but see where we're at. Okay. So let's export this and do a comparison side by side. Okay, so again, it's just about bringing the subject. I should brighten the highlights here a little bit. I kind of tempered those too much. Uh, let me just do that real quick. All right, that's better. And it's all very subjective, but Let's get to this and reset. So there's the original on the right, my edit on the left. The main thing being in the face, right? So I really had to temper this dappled light coming in. I didn't want to eliminate it completely, but this one on the chin was definitely a little bit distracting, and the tip of the nose was a little bit strong. So I just tempered the ones up in here, and then I got rid of this one. Uh, and then the eyes really need to shine, right? So just bringing out the speculars in the eyes, uh, and then darkening the background. The other thing you can do sometimes is you can just sort of let me show you is sometimes what I like to do with portraits is over here in the detail. Is it here? No, I'm sorry. In the lighting panel, I like to pull the micro contrast back a little bit, just to give it a little softer look. And then give it a little warmer look. Let me pull the micro contrast again. And if we look at this one, give it a second. So now it's a little bit softer, right? Instead of harsh, but uh, let's go back. Compositionally, we're okay. I just had to straighten it a little bit. But I think I like it without softening it. I kind of like a little bit crisper look personally. So if we do a split like this, that's the before, and that's the after. Okay. I think that about wraps it up, but let me check the chat section real quick, assuming I didn't disconnect from the stream accidentally. Okay. I'll be working on separating a subject from watching everything you've done in this vid. Cool. Okay, I'm glad. Just give you some ideas. You don't always want to separate the background, right? Uh, I think you had this soccer player, right? But anyway, sometimes you want to incorporate all of the elements in the scene and put them together. So, uh, but I think the one that I try to separate when I can, either by color or lighting. And let's see, Marcia says, thanks for the wonderful way to start the holiday. Oh, thanks. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be back on Sunday. And Noah says, Rob, how are you doing? The monkey picture is mine. I made it in some mountain valleys on a trip. Cool. Cool. Gosh, the word monkey itself, you can't use the word monkey and not just kind of smile, right? Like, what the hell is wrong with that monkey? Or, I don't know, a monkey did it. I mean, a monkey can do it. It's just you can use the word monkey in just about every sentence. So I'm being stupid, but you get what I'm saying. And plus, I really like your edit too. I think I missed how dramatic the water could be. Always good to get a good second opinion. Cool. Yeah. So I kind of passed the sky and went with I talked about that. We went kind of opposite. And thanks again, Marcia, for your donation. And I appreciate everyone else for your donations and participation and submitting your images for me to edit. It's a great way for both of us to learn together how to use Photoshop, or I'm sorry, Photolab. And because I learn a lot and get a lot of practice. And like the soccer picture today is relatively new for me. I never do sports action. So it helps me see different types of scenes and subjects to work with. So it's a learning for me as well. And again, your support through memberships and donations and using my affiliate links. Don't forget today is 25% off. There'll probably be a better deal on Black Friday. So if you can wait till then, why not, right? But I think 25% off, it's worth the full price they're asking for, in my opinion. But 25% off is a good deal. There's no surcharges or credits. You buy it, you own it. We're a license for it forever. And I know a lot of people still using Photolab 5 and Photolab 6 or 7. They're perfectly fine, and they still update for new cameras as they come out. Uh, I would say at a minimum, you really want to be on Photolab 6 right now. If you're on Photolab 5 or earlier, it's a good time to upgrade. I don't know if there's a discount on the upgrade or not. There's not, but we're close to October. October is when we usually see the new releases, so I would wait till October to upgrade. Don't upgrade to Photolab 8 now. If you're upgrading, upgrade in October. October is always the best time to upgrade when you see the new versions released and potentially get a discount. Uh, and that's it. So you guys have a great holiday weekend. I'm gonna go have some fun with my family here that I haven't seen in years. And hopefully I don't put on too much weight this weekend. I've been trying to peel it off. I put a couple of pounds on. Anyway, you guys, thanks for being here, and I'll see you back on Sunday.